Well, thank you everyone for joining this morning, and we're going to talk about creating problem solvers with STEM. My friend and coworker Sarah Scott is in the chat. She'll be monitoring for any questions that you have, but tell us who you are and tell us what you do. And if you have a particular question about STEM already, you can put that in the chat as well. And make sure you put in the chat, make sure you talk to all of us. So why do we need to talk about STEM right now? I was talking to Rowan earlier about she did this in the Middle East and it was brand new, but why should we be doing STEM or STEAM? I use them interchangeably. Why should we be doing it and why now? I want to start with a video because I think this video will help explain to you what I'm trying to do with this session.
The series is called How Do I Know? And a lot of times when people hear the phrase, how do I know? The next thing they say is what? How do I know what? But the key really isn't to know what, the key is to know why. Because when you know your why, you have options on what your what can be. For instance, my why is to inspire people to walk in purpose. My what is stand-up comedy. My what is writing books. My what can be going out with some friends to eat. In fact, another what that has moved me towards my why is a web series that we have out now called Break Time. So every Wednesday at 3 o'clock, you should subscribe to the channel. We do a series called Break Time on YouTube. So 3 o'clock, we drop a new episode. One episode in particular, I'm about to show you a clip to. We were in Winston-Salem. So Break Time, this is how it works. I travel the country, I do stand-up comedy, probably an hour, hour and a half at an event. And in the middle of my show, I'll just sit down and start talking to the audience. And funny just happens. Or I'll meet somebody who's really interesting. So I met this one guy, and he said that he teaches music at a school. I was like, all right, you teach music, you know, can you sing? And then I'm just gonna show you the clip. Check it. So you're a musical director. Cool.
Yes, sir.
All right, so let me get a couple bars of like Amazing Grace. Can you do the first part of that? Go ahead.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
Wow. That bro could sing, you know what I'm saying? All right. Now, what you give me the version is if your uncle just got out of jail, you got shot in the back when you was a kid. I'm just saying, let me see the hood version real quick, if you know which version I'm talking about. Just see if that exists. Let me see what you got.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Right now I'm found, was blind, but now I see.
So here's the thing. The first time I asked him to sing, he knew what he was doing. The second time I asked him to sing, he knew why he was doing it. When you know your why, your what has more impact because you're walking in or towards your purpose.
So I know that you guys are after school, maybe you do summer school too. I know what you do. By the time you leave this session with me, I want you to have a better understanding of your why. And I want you to be able to articulate why you're doing that so that you go from being a good singer like the man was at the beginning to being outstanding the way when he thought about his why. For me, STEM and STEAM, they're a culture. They're not something you buy in a box. They're not something that only happens for a few kids. It's a culture where every kid gets to be a problem solver And if we didn't know this before COVID, we definitely know this now. We all need to be problem solvers to survive in our world. Because I want all kids to be problem solvers, I say STEM is students and teachers energizing minds, and you're saying STEAM, we say students and teachers energizing active minds. I don't want to use the word science, technology, engineering, arts, and math because that leaves people out. Every teacher needs to be a STEM or STEAM teacher. Every student needs to have STEM and STEAM skills. So what's my why? This is a picture of me. I was a high school science teacher. I taught biology, chemistry, anatomy, 15 years in Syracuse, New York, and 5 in Charlotte. And this is a picture of me. I won something called the Milken National Educator Award. The Milkens actually live in Southern California. They're the 5th and 8th richest guys in America. Started these awards in California. And every year they give these to teachers. It's a surprise. You win $25,000 to do whatever you want to do with it. And so this is a picture of me at my school. I didn't apply for it. My superintendent nominated me. I didn't know anything about it. And they were telling me that I was getting a check for $25,000. And I used that to finish my doctorate out of Australia and then take over science, then science and math, and then STEM for our district. But I want you to think about your passions as we go through this. Also, besides being a teacher, I coached cross country, basketball, and track. I played French horn for a while in the Charlotte Symphony. And so I've always played my horn in the school musicals. I still play French horn even in our virtual orchestra at church during COVID. And my husband and I owned a McDonald's. And so being a McDonald's owner operator, it was his full-time job, but I wrote the business plan. I went to Hamburger University. I spent time there, and McDonald's made me a better educator because what I learned is at McDonald's, the first 6 months we hired someone, it didn't matter if they were taking orders, making French fries, making burgers, cleaning the bathroom, whatever they did. We spent more money on professional development in the first 6 months than we spent paying them. So I decided 25 years ago, if I were ever in charge of teachers, I would do whatever it took to get them the professional development they deserved, because as important as French fries are to McDonald's, and they're really important, we're making kids' futures. I also started looking at the data. These are real numbers from 2008, and look at this leaky STEM pipeline. In 2001 in the US, there were 4 million ninth graders, 2005, 2.8 million graduated. Of the 2.8 million who graduated, 9 million got into college, but only 1.3 million came back the second semester. We have a terrible problem in our country where kids go to college and leave with nothing but debt. Of the 1.3 million who came back the second semester, we assume that means they were ready. They predicted 166,000 would get a STEM degree, less than 120,000 got degrees. So we've had this awful leaky STEM pipeline for a long time. The US Army cares about this. We're working with the schools in Fallbrook, and they have Camp Pendleton kids right there in their school system. The US Army looked at their jobs, and they were really worried because 75% of jobs in the military require STEM skills. And so they they did a study called Ready, Willing, and Unable to Serve to try to figure out why they couldn't get the right people to go to the military. They brought in 1,000 kids in the state of Pennsylvania, 18 to 25. Everyone had finished high school. Some had finished a 1-year school, a 2-year school, a 4-year school, and they spent a day with them. They gave them physical fitness tests, reading tests, math tests, problem solving tests. And what they found, even among these kids who went to college, 70% of them would not qualify to enter the Army at the lowest level because of their lack of problem solving. So the US Army has declared the lack of STEM skills a matter of national security. If you look at college graduation rates, in May of 2020, 1% of the kids who got a degree in college got a degree in science. If you look at these other countries, it's so much more. If you look at math is even worse, 0.01%. So if you have a biological child, or you know kids that you're working with in your programs who like math, if they can go major in math, the sky is the limit. Where I live in Charlotte, we're the second largest banking city in the US after New York City. And they really struggle to get people in positions. One of my friends at church that plays French horn with me, he has an undergrad degree in statistics, and he works on a team, and their full-time job is pro sports. They get paid to go to the Olympics, they go to the NFL, they go to NASCAR, they go to all kinds of sports that make money. They study the sports, and then they create an algorithm that tells Bank of America how much to invest in those sports. So his starting salary on his team is $150,000 a year. Now, you guys live in California. That doesn't sound like much, but in North Carolina, teachers start at $35,000. They have about 50 positions open for this team that they've been trying to fill for 18 months, and they can't find people. Starting salary of $150,000, and last year his bonus was more than his regular salary. So I think if we could let our kids know about these cool jobs that are out there, more kids would do math. Now, I'm a STEMinist. I told you a little bit, I put STEM in everything, and you can be a STEMinist even if you're not a woman. This is a summer program in Charlotte. It's actually after school during the school year, and then in summer, it's like a camp. And this is girls in STEM. And the only people who can fix the leaky STEM pipeline is if we can get women to go into STEM, we'll take care of all of these issues. Right now, ladies, we make up 52% of the workforce in our country, not surprising. In STEM, it's about 20%. If you go into IT, it's 6%. And the only way to fix it is when we're working with these girls, we need to expose them to opportunities. Little girls, little kids care about things being fair. They'll say, Johnny got 2 cookies, or Loretto was a line leader yesterday. They keep track of all that stuff. We need to let them know that in 2021, even though the US is the best place to be a female, ladies, we still make 77 cents on the dollar compared to guys with that same education and experience level. And that's just wrong. But if these girls go into STEM, they'll make 98 to 99 cents on the dollar compared to guys, and companies will be recruiting them. And as women, we're all born wanting to make the world a better place. It's not just Miss America who says that. So we need to appeal to these girls' desire to solve problems and make the world a better place. If we help them get these STEM skills and show them that they can, if they get these STEM skills, they can get a good job and make the world a better place.
Hello, my name is Gwyneth, and I'll be your professor today. And I will be talking about the brain.
Hi.
Hello, I'm your veterinarian today.
You're kidding.
Nope, I'm Dr. Brooklyn. See?
Okay, doctor.
Oh, here, let me see. Good morning, everyone. I'm your new coach. My name is Maddie. Nice to meet you. I had the most fantastic day in the office. You'll never believe what happened. We got that new business I wanted. You ever seen him fly?
Have you seen him what?
Fly?
No.
My cat can fly.
Okay.
The dog's brain can't think as much as the human's brain because there's no high school for the dog. This is Peter, the Triceratops. Peter is 1 year old. The T-Rex, Sally, is 1,002,252 years old. Knees up like a unicorn. Higher, higher. I've been to New York, Transylvania, Pennsylvania. We can think and do lots of stuff with our brain. Now, does anybody know how big the brain is? Anybody? Sophia. It is medium. Medium? Very good.
So as I tell you the rest of this story, I'm going to give you a strategy. The teacher in me has to give you an assignment. And I want you to read this assignment. This strategy is called AEIOU. So as I go through this, you might want to take a picture of this with your phone, or you could write these 5 things down. I want you to pick one of these, or you could do all 5. I want you to come up with an adjective that you think of when I tell you the story, an emotion it makes you feel, an interesting fact, something you didn't know, an a real surprising moment of something I told you, or an something you have a question about. So take a picture of this, or write down these 5 things, AEIOU. And at the end, I'm going to ask you to share what you came up with. And I love frogs. That's why there's little frog faces all over there. All right, so this is where I live in Charlotte, nowhere near as big as in Southern California, but there's about 1 million people in the city limits and about 2 million in the greater Charlotte area. And I told you I won that Milken National Educator Award. I used the money to finish my doctorate out of Australia, took over eventually STEM for the district. And I knew from owning our own McDonald's that businesses care about what's happening in schools, and they want employees that have the skills they need, but most of the time the businesses don't speak the same languages as the schools. And so that's another reason STEM is really important. It can be the connective tissue that connects the schools to the business community, and it's for the good of everybody. So I went to the Chamber of Commerce and I said, who are the major employers in Charlotte? And they told me Charlotte wanted to be known as an energy capital. So I went to the 3 biggest energy companies and said, I'm your workforce development. I'm pre-K-12 STEM. Tell me what kind of skills you need, what kind of jobs you'll have, how much education does it take, and what do you make? And they said, well, we're going to need at least 50,000 new jobs in the next 5 years. And the average starting salary will be about 70,000. And that's with 1 year of community college. And I was like, wow, that sounds like a lot. What they really wanted was somebody with a 2-year degree in mechatronics. If you have this, you'd start at about 80,000. Mechatronics is a combination of mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, and IT. You can get a 2-year degree, 4-year degree, a master's or a doctorate. You can work in advanced manufacturing, you can work in energy, you can work in hospitals, any place that has large machines. You know enough, you have enough mechanical sense that you could fix small things on machines. You know how to use computers enough to look things up, and you know how to ask for help. And so there's lots of jobs with that. I also went to NASCAR because Charlotte is the birthplace of NASCAR and motorsports. And there about 100,000 people work in motorsports with an average starting salary of 75,000. And they were trying to get minorities and women to care about motorsports. So I went to them and said, what do you need to work for you? And they said, you only need 1 semester of community college, 2 math and 2 science classes. And the average job starts at about 75,000. I was like, wow, that sounds really good. When I was looking at this, I also discovered iCar certification. I had lots of boys in my class who didn't really care about school, but they love cars. And if you love cars and you can go to school, community college for 4 weeks, it only costs $1,000. What you do as an iCar certified person, you work for a car dealer or a mechanic. They bring the car in, you plug it into a computer, you learn to read the information on the computer, you send an email to the mechanic to tell him what to do, and you start at $55,000 a year. Remember, teachers in North Carolina start at 35,000. So a 4-week program, you can start at more than a teacher. And I taught biology, chemistry, anatomy. Lots of my students would say, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be a physical therapist, I'm going to be a nurse. And I would look at some of these kids and no one at home spoke English or no one had been to college. And the reality of getting into college, out of college, into medical school and figuring out how to pay for all of it meant that for many kids, it wasn't going to happen. So after I won that Milken Award, I was invited to be on the community advisory board for the hospitals. And we have 22 hospitals in Charlotte. And my first meeting, I raised my hand and said, what kind of jobs do you have that take less than 2 years of college? And they said, oh, there's so many of those in the medical field. The easiest thing to do is to be a surge tech. Takes 10 months, costs $10,000. But if you're African American or speak Spanish, had a B average in high school, you go free. And if you agree to work at one of the hospitals in the area, one of the 22 hospitals, even if you're not Black or Hispanic or had a B average, it only costs $2,000. So money should not prevent anybody from going through this. What you do as a surge tech is you go to the supply closet, you get the utensils the surgeon needs to do whatever surgery they're doing, you go in and watch them do surgery. And before they close the body, you physically count the utensils to make sure they didn't leave anything inside the body because that'd be bad. And then you put them in the dishwasher and you start at about 55,000. Once you're in, you can work 20 hours a week as a surge tech, go to school for 15 hours a week for 2 more years and be a radiation technician. And the hospital will pay for you to do that. You can do x-rays, MRIs, mammograms, and you start at 75 to 80,000. Or you can work 2 years, 20 hours a week as a surge tech, go to school 15 hours a week to be an extracorporeal technologist. What this person is doing is there's somebody behind the computer having open heart surgery, organ transplant surgery, something pretty serious. The blood is out of their body for a couple hours. You're watching the blood to make sure it gets enough oxygen. We take out waste. This is a stressful job. If you make a mistake, somebody can die. And so by federal law, you can only work 12 hours a week. So most people work 2 6-hour days and they start at $150,000 a year. So lots of really cool jobs there. Manufacturing in Southern California, I had no idea till we were starting to work with the LAUSD schools, how much manufacturing happens in Southern California. And manufacturing is really big here in North Carolina. A lot of my relatives worked in textiles when I was a kid and it was very dirty. It's not like that anymore. Out of high school, you can go be a fabricator or a machinist with a median salary between 30 and 42,000, or you can get a degree and be a field service engineer, plant process engineer, materials engineer with a median salary of 95,000. So lots of really cool jobs in manufacturing and it's growing. And if manufacturing were a country, it would be the 9th largest economy in the world. So we need to tell our students about this. And if you have kids who like to do new things, who like to invent new creations, 75% of all the innovation in our country happens in manufacturing. And when we were doing this, we figured out that kids needed some coding skills, but they also needed computational thinking skills. And for you guys in after school programs, if you could get them to buy Raspberry Pis for your kids, this little girl is at a camp that our church runs at a local middle school. And we've been running that camp for 12 years. It's a high poverty middle school. When we took it over, 20% of the kids were on grade level. And now we run every Tuesday night a STEM family night. We have a free meal. We bring the kids in, they have clubs. But before sixth grade, they come to camp for 3 weeks, and every kid gets a Raspberry Pi. It's the thing to the right of her left hand. It's about the size of an iPhone. You plug it into an old monitor, an old keyboard, and you start coding. It's basically a hard drive. It costs $38. So if you have a kid of your own, you should buy them one of these so they can teach themselves coding. Well, the kids have 3 weeks to make a computer game. I think it was 4 years ago, there was a kid in the class who made a game the first day. So the guy teaching the summer school calls me up. He's like, Cindy, you have to come meet Joe Kwan. I'm like, uh-oh, is Joe Kwan in trouble? And he goes, no, no, no. He goes, I've been doing computer gaming for 15 years. This kid is better than anyone I've ever met. So I go meet this 12-year-old kid, African-American kid. His family's nearly homeless. And I was just curious about his scores. Normally we don't look after school and summer. The beauty of those programs is you typically don't have to care about scores, but I was just curious. This kid was in the top 1% in the state in reading, math, and science. So I go meet him. I'm like, Joquan, you're a really smart kid. You're really good at coding, and you're going into sixth grade. Sixth grade is where we start losing kids. If a kid gets placed in remedial math in sixth grade, only 12% of them ever recover. So I'm like, Joquan, why don't you create an app to help sixth graders do math? Because who better to help a sixth grader do math than a sixth grader who thinks math's easy? He goes, can I make some money at that? I'm like, yes, you can. So he made a 99-cent app. And as a sixth grader, he made $250,000 on his app. As a seventh grader, he made $750,000. As an eighth grader, he made $1 million. As a ninth grader, he made $1 million. He's in 10th grade now, so I don't know how much he's making. And his family went from being worried about being homeless to now they have a home that's paid for, they have a car that's paid for, they have a good financial future because he developed these STEM skills. So I just told you quickly about some really cool jobs that can be out there if you have STEM skills. According to the Department of Labor, right now, 50% of everybody's job is STEM, but by 2030, 75% of the jobs will be STEM. So no matter what our kids are going to do in the future, they need these problem-solving skills. But why should it matter to your kids? They don't really know what these jobs mean. They don't know what salaries mean and that kind of stuff. I use this phrase from Marian Wright Edelman, who started the Children's Defense Fund. You can't be what you can't see. I think it's our moral obligation to show our students that people who live where they live, who look like them, can develop these skills, get a good job, and make the world a better place. And with you and after school and summer programs, you're in a perfect position to be that one adult who cares about them and believes in them to make that difference. There's research that says successful women and people of color in STEM who made it have at least one person outside of their family who believed in them, and that can be you. Now, I had to worry about scores, and so we would talk about achievement gaps, and we cleaned up the data, we disaggregated the data, and I started to get mad. I spent my whole life fighting for kids who didn't have a voice, the kids in poverty, the kids who are English language learners, the kids who had a 504 plan. But what I came to realize, and what we believe at Defined Learning, is it's not an achievement gap, it's an opportunity gap. And if we give all kids the right opportunity, all kids will succeed. And many times in school, teachers, I was a high school science teacher, high school AP physics and AP calculus teachers think STEM is only for the top 1% in their school. According to the Department of Labor, the best predictor of your success in STEM is your ability to master algebra. And I'm not blaming algebra teachers. I'm saying we need to teach math a different way. And you guys in after school and summer, you have an opportunity to show kids that everybody can do math, that doing math can be fun. And when you can do math, your life will be better. And every teacher has to be a STEM teacher so kids see us as adults modeling problem solving for them. Right now, when our kids are in school, this is how they learn. Everything's in its own bucket, nothing touches, but this is the real world. All the colors run together, and we have to give them the opportunity to figure out how to survive in that world. And your space of camp and after school is the perfect place for that to happen. So when I'm talking about STEM, this is what is included in the lessons. There needs to be hands-on inquiry, cyber inquiry, something from the real world. Our kids have great fate meters. They know whether we're giving them real problems or something on page 77 at the end of chapter 3. So give them something real world. They need links to careers because they care. And they need to be using standards from multiple disciplines. In school, everything is like just English, just math. In STEM, they need to tie that all together. And that's what we can do for them. And they need those 4 C's of communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking. Of course, we have to get kids to read, but just making a kid read who hates to read doesn't really work. We have to give them a reason to read. As a high school science teacher, when I was working on my dissertation, my research showed my kids had to learn 15 new words every 20 minutes just to pass that state test. Biology is the most vocabulary laden course they take. And I was not a teacher who made them sit and take notes. I would lecture maybe 5 minutes, and then they would do, I was a singing science teacher. I put all my notes in songs. We colored, we played, we learned. The research says you learn the most, but before you're 3, nobody lectures to you. You don't take notes. You sing, you play, you color. So that's what I did in my high school class, and that's what I would encourage you to do in your programs. But I talked to my mother-in-law about how my kids knew biology, but when they got to the test, they didn't know how to answer the question. There were simple little 4-letter words that were tripping them up. And she goes, it's easy. You have to teach them how to read like a scientist. And so I created this poster. How do you read? And we taught them to read, write, and think like a scientist. And it didn't matter if my kids were AP/IB kids going to Ivy League schools or a 17-year-old taking biology for the 4th time who read at the 3rd grade level. They loved this. When I took over at the district level, we created this for the elementary kids and trained our teachers how to use it as a ticket out the door. So our students got to see that people in the real world read and do these other skills. And then we made these for reading like a mathematician, reading like a historian, reading like an artist. We totally changed the culture about reading in our schools so kids saw the power and saw that adults did do this. We had to give them problems to solve and problems that really mattered. And so that was something that was very different. We had to give them time to figure things out. We want them to have time. We want kids to be able to say Eureka and be excited about what they learned. We want them to want to come to school or after school. We want them to have time to present, because you guys know when you have to present something, you really understand it. We want to give them experiences. If you travel somewhere, you never forget what you've learned there. And so we want to use all the technology we have to take them places and give them these experiences. And whether you call it STEM or STEAM, you have to use the arts. Whenever kids are using music, art, drama, dance, and technology, those are gateways to the mastery they need to other things. And so the arts have to be integrated in whatever a student is learning. This is a picture of the kid closest to the front is Joe Kwan, the kid that made a couple $1 million and before he's a 10th grader. And he's the only one. His mom has 3 sisters. All of her kids have ended up in jail. And instead, Joe Kwan is already a millionaire in 10th grade. And there's lots of colleges trying to recruit him. So when we give our kids these skills, it really deals with the equity issues as well. Now, one of the ways for you to do this, I mean, I worked on my doctorate to figure this out. You don't have to do this. PBL is the best way to give kids this opportunity. And it's this teaching method. If you've never done it, it's not difficult. I'm going to give you some free resources that will enable you to do this. But it gives kids the opportunities to do all the things that we set up for our kids to do in Charlotte. It's deeper learning. They get to work together. It's something that matters for them. And there's research that shows that when they're doing PBL, they're learning deeply. And so there's significant improvement in their school test scores. I know you as after school and summer don't have to care about that, but these kids, it's part of their whole student experience that we need to care about. And PBL is linked to their improved higher order thinking that will help them succeed in life. If you look at skills in 2015 on the left, this is what companies were needing. In 2020, if you look on the right, the number one thing is complex problem solving. No matter what kind of a business a kid is going into, this is very important. Critical thinking, creativity, and in after school and summer, you have the opportunity for the kids to take the time to really develop those skills. Also, when you're doing STEM, they're learning persistence. And you guys know, I mean, I'm old. So when I started teaching, kids were different. Now they all come from every kid gets a trophy generation. And so if it doesn't work the first time, they want to quit. They need persistence. And so we want to teach them that in STEM, fail means first attempt in learning. And as long as they're learning something from their attempt, it's not a failure. I encourage you, if you get an opportunity, to look for this article from the Harvard Business Review on curiosity. They studied 1,000 people from all different companies and found the number one trait that contributed to success in all fields was curiosity. and they've come up with a little test for you to test yourself, give yourself a score on curiosity. What they found is preschool kids, before they went to school, 98% of them scored at the genius level on curiosity. The longer we're in school, the fewer number of people score at the genius level. By the time a kid graduates from a typical high school, less than 12% of them score at the genius level. But if you're doing STEM and PBL, you can keep their curiosity ignited. So I encourage you to see if you can find that.
Remember what it was like to be curious? Remember when you were always ready to solve a mystery? When the only way forward was to figure things out? Remember when you questioned everything? And when the secrets revealed themselves, you couldn't help but smile? There was never a moment to lose. You chased after mysteries like your life depended on it. There were no limitations to your imagination. Anything was possible. We remember. At Carillion Clinic, we know that being curious is the only way forward. So we still question everything. When something isn't working, we figure it out. Sometimes there isn't a moment to lose, so we don't waste a second. We remember that solving problems doesn't just take formulas, it takes imagination. There are still mysteries to be uncovered, because sometimes life does depend on it. And sometimes what seems impossible can actually become possible. We're still solving the mysteries, because at Carillion Clinic, curiosity is our calling.
If I were you running an after-school program, that'd be a good tagline. Curiosity is our calling. And think about ways you can do that with all of your kids. This picture is to remind me that we need STEM for all. The National Science Foundation says the more diverse the group solving a problem, the more robust the solution. The only way we're going to cure or solve all these problems that adults have created is to bring diverse groups of kids together and empower them to solve those problems. This is to remind us that STEM puts the fun back in fundamentals. And for you and after school, when you're having fun and you're being creative and building things, you're doing STEM. This work that we did in Charlotte, in 3 years' time, our 5th and 8th grade science scores went up 44 points while the state went up 5. Our biology scores went up 35 points while the state went up 10. Of course, the state thought we cheated. They came and investigated. They disaggregated our data. And a non-labeled kid in the STEM classroom had 2 years worth of growth. A special ed or an English language learner kid had 4 to 5 years worth of growth. The math teachers were really skeptical. The science teachers jumped in the deep end with me because I'd been a science teacher. Math teachers, I said, just give me 3 minutes at the beginning of each of your classes to give kids a reason to learn math. And that's all we did. We put a cartoon, a song, a diagram, a chart, a job that could use these skills. And in 3rd through 5th grade, our scores went up 29 points while the state went up 7. Middle school went up 33 points while the state went up 5. And Algebra 1 went up 26 while the state went up 6. We knew from our research, if we could get kids through Algebra 1 and biology the first time, they had a 98% chance of graduating on time. And when we started, we had a 37-point gap between the rich kids and the poor kids in the reading, math, and science scores. After 3 years of doing STEM, it went to 7. Because of that, we won the Broad Award. It's considered the Super Bowl of urban education because we decreased that achievement gap. So I know I talk 100 miles an hour because I get really excited, but if you guys want to respond now, what are you thinking right now? Can you respond with the AEI? Or you and Sarah or any of my hosts, if any of you want to jump in, if you see something that I need to respond to, just let me know. I'm not really seeing the chat right now. All right, well, if no one's commenting, it's fine. We'll keep going. For you guys that are here with us, I'm very happy that you're here. Your students are lucky that you care enough to try to figure out how to improve. What we at Defined Learning do is we want to work on these skills from pre-K through high school: problem solving, transfer of knowledge, engagement, creativity, critical thinking, all of these skills, we work on them all the way through. And this is what it looks like. This is the website when you log in. And so if you go to definedlearning.com, and Sarah, if you'd put that in the chat, put the website in the chat room, if you go there and let's see, I got to move the pictures. And all you have to do is go to resources at the top. I think that's where it is. Yeah. If you go to resources, then this toolbar comes down, and at the top, there's projects and tasks for remote, distance, or hybrid. If you click on that, I'm going to show you when you go in there, we're going to give you, there's 4 of these free PBLs that you're welcome to use. So if you have K2 kids, there's one on being a beekeeper. It has, there's videos, there's resources, there's a task for the kids to do, there's information about jobs. In grades 3-5, there's one on being a chef, and 6-8, it's an entrepreneur, and 9-12, it's an architect. So you guys that are running after school programs, here's some really incredible free PBLs for you to start with to figure out how that works with your students. Now, Sarah is on here. She's one of the people that's here. She's the person who handles the accounts and actually lives in the San Diego area. She can talk to you if your school decides to buy it, because if you buy it, there's more than 1,200 of these PBLs pre-K-12. It's also one of those things that's not that expensive. It's one of those things that a PTA can buy. When I was in Charlotte, many times PTA, this is $4,000 for a year. PTAs bought that. You have these free ones to start with, but if they decide they want it, that's what it costs. All right, one more video.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
I thought about becoming an actor and or a model.
What do most of your friends want to be?
Basketball players.
Some want to be football players. Singer or actor.
I'd love to be a soccer player one day.
If you could be any soccer player in the world, who would you be?
I'd probably pick David Villa.
We don't need more Villas.
We don't need more Adrianas.
We don't need more Carl Anthonys.
We don't need more Joeys.
We don't need another Zendaya.
We don't need more Drews.
Verizon gives a lot of students, a lot of kids who don't have access to internet at home. It gives them a lot of chances.
It's really cool that I can look things up faster.
It's a lot easier to access things.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
I want to be a video game designer and a soccer player.
Hi kids, how are you? Everything good? Yeah?
Wait, hold on. Oh, no.
I'm literally about to cry.
So if people ask you what you learned on this session, one of the big things, if we change our attitude, we need to stop asking our students or our own children what they want to be when they grow up. Instead, we need to start asking them what kind of problems they want to solve. And if we do that, that changes everything. It changes their focus. It changes our focus. And if you start using the defined learning resources, there's actually a portfolio in there so that your students could leave your after school program with a portfolio of the skills they've developed. Some really cool stuff. Where do we go next? Well, I believe this is a phrase I like: do or do not, there's no try, from Yoda. That tells you how old I am. I honestly believe we have to do this. And so I hope that I've added to your STEMunition as to why you should be doing STEM. If you need help when you're talking to people that are your supervisors, or you know people that I should talk to, please share my email. Or if you have questions, email me. I'd love to help you. This really is not just my job, it's my passion. So thank you very much, friends. Keep calm and STEM on. And if anybody has any questions, we have a few minutes left.